You have to be humble. You have to be open. If you screw up, your team's going to notice, right?
Yeah. Did you ever think about quitting during that time? How close were you?
We don't believe in like being a jack of all trades and ace at none. Like we won't see us doing like a spin and core class or something like that.
Some biceps going, yeah.
We know what we're best at.
You still have them pay something as they go in too, so people never disassociate the value of it. People need to pay something there.
I won't ask you to do anything that I can't do myself. Creating those efficient pulses that allow you to get what you need done and trusting the process, right? Creating goals that you're not going this way and then that way and then this way every single day.
Investing in your team benefits things like this, these affiliate programs, like because on an ROI it makes all sense, but what they forget to look at is the fact that retaining your employees is huge.
We went up to 5 studios before the pandemic, down to 4, up to 7, down to 5. So there were some learning lessons in there. These owners of these yoga studios that were asking me like, hey, do you want to be a spin instructor? And I'm like, no.
It is a great day to be part of the dirt life. I hope you got some fitness clothes on because we're about to break into a sweat with Andrew, founder of YYC Cycle. Welcome to the dirt life, Andrew.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for having me here. Yeah.
Good to have you, man. Good to have you.
Awesome. So for, YYC Cycle, it's a spin studio. What's a spin studio?
Yeah. So, I mean, spin goes back to the 80s. Johnny G was the guy that kind of revolutionized spin. And it's interesting when you tell people that you have a spin studio and they really have no idea. They think like you're a DJ or especially a guy of my stature, they really don't know what you're talking about. But no, we have 5 studios within the fitness industry and it's spin classes. So our studios, step into our studios and it's like nightclub lighting system, nightclub sound system. We've got 42 to 40 bikes in the room and we hold about 50-minute classes. We run about 240 classes per week.
Love that.
240 total or 240 per location?
240 total.
Okay,
between our studios.
Yeah. That's a lot of people, though. That's a lot of sweat.
That's a lot of sweat.
That's a lot, man. That's crazy.
Now, so I've been to a couple spin classes. My first ever was Liam and I went to the Crowfoot Hot Yoga.
Okay.
It was earlier on, and we were there, and it took me a while. The coordination was off. I've always been into the gym, football, and rugby, so on a spin cycle was different for me. But that one, Britney Spears came on at one point, and his name was Matt, I think. He's like, give me another turn on that red dial, and then oops, I did it again. I felt it that time too. That energy is real. Talk to us about that energy that you guys create.
Brittany got you.
She got me.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Going back to kind of where this whole thing started was actually at Hot on Crowfoot.
Really?
Cool.
Yeah, and unfortunately they're not around anymore, but this started with me. I'm coming into my 12th year of actually teaching spin classes. And so, I did my international business degree at UFC, but at that time I was also playing football. And when I played football, I was 260 pounds, shaved head, just a totally different person back then. And when I finished up playing football, I knew that, football players either go one way or another way. And as far as fitness and health wise. And so I was going to some yoga studios, and actually the owners of the yoga studio were opening up kind of the first boutique spin studios. Nobody really knew what boutique was. Soul Cycle was doing it in the States and they kind of wanted to replicate that. And I was going to their yoga studios and they asked me if I wanted to be a spin instructor. And at that point in time, I thought, I haven't done too many spin classes. I did it at A Good Life. I don't love cardio. I don't love running on a treadmill, but I love motivating people. I love connecting with people. Energy is my jam. And I thought, there's nothing to lose by saying yes to this. And so I started teaching and I started feeling what you felt when Brittany came on. But I was telling one of our first motivators at that time that, we first started teaching spin. Nobody really knew what spin was. We kind of just did our own thing on the bike. And the bike became this platform that it wasn't even about the spin class. It was this platform for connection and positivity and passion and community. And that motivator, actually, when I sat down with her, she said, you got to write that down. That's your mantra. And so now in all of our studios on the wall, we're not in the business of spin classes. We're in the business of positivity and passion and community. And so, and on the back of our spin room walls has all those words on it. So it was very kind of an organic love that I developed for what happened in that space, you know, and I started gaining some momentum and seeing some differences, you know, with me, myself, physically and mentally. And I wanted people to feel welcome in my classes, whether or not it was their first chapter or their fifth chapter kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want them comparing themselves to me or anybody else in the room. And so, you know, I welcomed people when they came to my class for the first time. I welcomed them into my biker gang. And so that's where those studios, the biker gang, started. When I just welcomed people into the biker gang, I wanted them to feel welcome no matter what age or size or sex or gender or whatever. You know, I wanted them to feel welcome in that space. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it started. And here we are going into my 12th year.
Wow,
Jeez.
that's quite the journey, man. So taking back like a little bit, because I know you're like a big football. Were you like a lineman? Like what was your position?
Yeah, I was a D end, so I was a defensive end. I'm born and raised in Calgary, and I went to high school here. I played for Western, and then I went on to U of C, and I played there for 6 years. I redshirted a year, and then I played for 5 years, and then after that I went out to I also was a long snapper, so on like punts and field goals, like snapping the ball.
Yeah,
it was kind of the specialty position. So I got called to the Montreal Alouettes in 2009 for training camp out there.
Wow, cool.
So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I didn't make it onto the full team, and I've, you know, as a long snapper, you still have to do drills with your other positions, and I just got eaten alive by some of the big boys that came up, like O-linemen from the States and that kind of thing. They were like 340 pounds, and I was 260 pounds, which was pretty big. They just they ate me alive. But it was a great experience anyways.
Damn, so you're going to go like the professional football route, and then was that during like that year that you opened the YYC Cycle, or when was that? Like,
yeah, it was interesting. At that point in time, like coming out of university, I did my international business degree there. So I had a partner at the time that was training me for pro football. We had the idea of kind of creating an apparel company. And so I started dealing with manufacturers in Asia, in China and Taiwan, and producing and manufacturing textiles.
Like
so,
t-shirts?
Yeah, it was more like functional apparel. So, you know, shorts and t-shirts that could put your body into proper posture.
Oh, I got one of those.
Yeah.
I got
the reverse bra.
Yeah. I got one of those. Then there's also like those like tight t-shirts. It's like sucks your back down,
and you're uncomfortable when you're not in the right posture.
There's like that bra that I actually have too. So I'm very conscious of that, because especially like at a desk, you're like this like, all the time, you know. Yeah. But then I also have like the t-shirt that no one can actually tell. Yeah. I'm not wearing it, but I wear it.
You sure you don't have it on right now?
It's like the Spanx. Like Spanx version for men.
Yes.
No, so we did that, or I did that, and it was a really interesting experience. I traveled to Asia. I mean, really met a lot of great people there. Learned a little bit of Mandarin to kind of get going, because when I was in China and Taiwan, whenever I would negotiate with them, they would start negotiating in front of me in Chinese. Whether or not that was Mandarin or Cantonese. And so I knew that if I learned a little bit of Mandarin and started talking in front of them, they wouldn't know how much I knew, so that they couldn't negotiate in front of me, which is kind of interesting. So I did that, and that was a really interesting learning experience. Like, it wasn't a success back there, but I learned a lot of stuff, you know.
Cool.
And then during that process, I was training for pro football, but it was actually, you know, a relationship at the time that person I was with was like, you have a business degree. What do you want to do with your life? Like, do you really want to keep kind of jumping around to different cities, being part of the CFL?
And so this is a partner, like you're like a girlfriend?
No, so I had this company that I was dealing with manufacturers with textiles in Asia, but also at that time I had a girlfriend at the time that was like, what are you doing? You know, you just want to keep hopping around for football tryouts and that kind of thing. I went down to the States for some arena football tryouts, and it was an interesting process, because it was a great feeling for people saying like, oh my God, that's great. You're going to be a pro football player. That's exciting. And it kind of filled the ego, but I never grew up wanting to be a pro football player. there's a lot of lessons in that too. Like even with spin, when I first started teaching spin, you could imagine some of my football boys were like, hey, have you heard about Obrecht, what he's doing right now? Like he's teaching spin.
Oh yeah.
First of all, they couldn't picture that. But second of all, I mean, there's a lot of preconceived ideas of, you know, what a group fitness instructor is, especially if they're a man, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, well, he must be gay, you know, and this was 10 years ago. And so it's like a lot of what we do with the studios is try to be an inclusive culture, that it's like there isn't these stigmas of things, that people come in, you can be who you are, and we try to be a pretty inclusive culture at the studios now. So anyways.
That's funny, man.
And why did you go into spin in particular? I mean, I feel like your football, my first inclination would be like to start a gym, you know, like focus on the anaerobics instead of the aerobics. Why did you decide to go more into like the cardio space?
You know what? It was just these owners of these yoga studios that were asking me like, hey, do you want to be a spin instructor? And I'm like, I love leading people. I love, you know, I'm glad I fell on that. Like if there was someone that had a boot camp that said, hey, you're great with people. You know, you've got some good skills as far as connecting with people and being in a group and being likable, hopefully, that, you know, you want to be part of our boot camp studio, sure, I'd probably say yes too. So it just so happened, call it serendipity. But it was great. But there's something so special that happens in that space. Like I'll be teaching until I'm 90. I don't know if anybody's going to come to my classes. I'll be teaching.
A lot of 70-year-olds.
Yeah, they'll be like, isn't that guy? That like I'll be teaching in a park somewhere, pigeons or something.
Yeah. So when you first started, if I recall, you had 2 partners or 3 partners, was it? Or was it a group of you guys, right?
2 partners at the time. So when I finished teaching at those studios, which, you know, those owners of those studios, you know, I learned a lot of what I wanted to do, but also maybe what I didn't want to do as far as like creating a culture and the connection within the team. And you know, I sat down with them and I said, hey, I love this. Like, I'm really loving this, what I'm doing. And what's your vision for the future? I'd love to be a part of it in some bigger way. I grew up with parents who are entrepreneurs, so I wanted to be a part of it in a bigger way. And they thought like, hey, listen, great. You know, we could probably have like a management position, like at the front desk and that kind of thing. And although that's an important position, I had a bigger vision that I wanted to.
Your vision exceeds like their vision kind of thing.
And you know, I thought that I built some good momentum there and a good kind of following there at that point in time. And so, you know, with them, I just knew it wasn't in their vision, you know, that I was going to be a part of it in a bigger way. And so I actually ended up getting fired from those studios. And, you know, I think that there was a couple elements there that, you know, I didn't align with. You know, there's some things like I didn't want to teach off the bike. A lot of studios, you'll see someone jump off the bike and walk around the room and teach from there. Spin is an interesting thing. And the philosophy at our studios is that like, I won't ask you to do anything that I can't do myself. And there's some crazy stuff that you see on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is in spin classes. People are going at insane rates and speeds and doing crazy moves. Everything that we do at our studio is looked over by our medical director, who's an exercise physiologist and chiropractor, and looks over what we do in the studio to make sure that it's physiologically correct. It's a wild west out there sometimes.
What would be an example of something you've seen?
Well, just like certain paces out of the seat, right? Like you would go like just crazy speeds sprinting out of the seat, and it's just not good for your body. Plus, you know, I want to make sure that my mom can come to my spin classes, which she does. She's been to like 1,400 classes.
Wow. 1,400?
Oh, wow. Really? So like mom's
run a marathon.
Mom's killing it.
Yeah.
But just as much as my wife, you know, like I want it to be a safe and inclusive fitness experience for everybody, you know? And so at that time, there was just some misalignments, and they had asked me, you know, at that point in time, you know, they said, hey, listen, you know, we're gonna take off a couple classes from your schedule. Now that at that point in time, I asked them like, why? I love what I do. I'm filling the classes. And they said that it was because they wanted to help me balance out my life. Now at that point in time, because I had this apparel company, I wasn't making any money. So the only money that I was making was spin. And so I didn't have I didn't have the confidence enough to say like, no, actually by you taking classes away, you're actually impacting me financially. Like this is the only way I'm making money, which was crazy. And so they took away classes, but I strategically, they said either you can give away 2 or 3 classes. I said, well, if you're asking me to pick, I'll pick 2, obviously. Yeah. But I picked the classes that were the most popular during the week, and I thought that they would have the biggest, the riders would have the biggest issues if I gave those classes up, because they weren't really giving me a reason why they were letting me go. Yeah. Now hindsight, like as an owner, sure, it's important to have full alignment, and if I wasn't aligned with some of the movements or what they wanted to do, then okay, fair enough. That's one reason to fire someone. So I got let go. And
was it a bad firing kind of thing? Like were you guys like pissed at each other, or was it just like mutual?
No. Okay. I kind of had the feeling like there was writing on the wall that it was probably going to happen. So
I see.
One of my philosophies is like the problem's not the problem; it's your reaction to the problem. So I'm like, you know what? I try to make the best out of it. I probably knew it was coming. I had a class that night, and they wanted to meet with me after that class. I said, "This is probably the last class I'm going to teach," and so I had a blast.
The finale,
yeah. And even in class, I wasn't like, spin like it is the last time that you're gonna,
it's Brittany bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but if you were in class, maybe. But anyways, yeah, I'm sure there's some songs that I could have played, but no, it was great. Like I had a blast there, met up with the owner, they let me go. Again, interesting going through that process, and then now kind of being on the other side and sometimes having to kind of let people go.
For sure. Yeah.
But at that point in time, after that, I found out about 2 guys that wanted to get in touch with me, and they were my first 2 partners, and they were in oil and gas, really good friends for a long time. They saw spin becoming more popular, wanted to have a business together. But didn't know how to teach a spin class, and so they even signed a lease for a location, the first location.
Was that the one in Kensington?
In Kensington.
That was the first one?
Yeah,
okay.
And then realized, like, shit, we don't know how to teach a spin class. So they had found out that I was maybe looking and wanted to get in touch, and so we connected, and that's where it started with the 3 of us.
Amazing. Was it a third when you guys started?
No, at that point in time, like we talked about, I'm like, I need to have a piece of this company at some point in time. They offered me, we talked about 10% of the company. And then, I was happy with that. I didn't have any money at that point in time to invest into the company. And, then we just kind of moved forward. And I knew that like my effort and hard work was going to be the leverage that I could build in the business. And so we built Kensington. It was super successful. Like it was profitable after month 1.
Wow.
And so we saw like, okay, we're on to something, right? And I was positioned to kind of run the training, create the culture, really kind of the people development side of things. And they just kind of followed my lead, but obviously brought some really good tangible skills to the table as far as a partnership goes.
Yeah. Wow.
Partnership's an interesting journey to go down, but as soon as that first studio, we wanted to build a second studio, I talked to them and I said, listen, I don't want to price myself out of my own business. I'm going to have a third of this if we want to expand. Yeah. At that point in time, the interesting thing was that we also had, I also had like a big, I don't want to talk about that.
Fair enough. One thing that YYC Cycle I've always thought is really awesome on is culture. And for the viewers at home, Andrew, like 90% of our subscribers, they own a lawn care landscaping company. And one thing that we always have a struggle with is because it's a seasonal business, team members can sometimes come and they can go pretty quickly, and building a strong culture is incredibly difficult in this industry. How have you guys been able to build, maintain, and adjust an awesome culture?
Yeah, I mean, that's a journey, right? Like, even when you talk about partnerships and that kind of thing, like our first partner left about 3 years into the business and we didn't have a shotgun clause in the USA. So that ended up being like a 1.5-year process of back
legal
and forth.
Legal battles, back and forth, yeah.
Yeah. And shotgun clause is where you can offer to buy someone out, but they're allowed to turn around and buy you out at the same offer if they don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at that point in time, we could have, even that partner put a pretty high number of what what they expected to be bought out for. And so it's tough getting someone down. That's why it was a 1.5 year process to do that. But, and we'll get back to your culture position, but this is a good learning point too. It's important to have a shotgun clause in a USA just to make sure that everything's fair. Like sometimes relationships don't last. And, a shotgun clause is that you could come to me and say like, listen, I'm going to buy you out, Andrew, for $1 million. And I could just tell you, okay, I'm going to enact the shotgun clause and I'm going to buy you out for $1 million, and then it's done.
It's done. So right there, it's like no negotiation.
No negotiation. So the first person that offers, I've got usually 30 days to either accept or tell you that I'm going to buy you out for the same amount, and then it's done.
Yeah, that makes it fair, because then you actually go to the table with like a fair offer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're going to lowball you.
Something that
my
you
shares at risk.
It could just be reversed, and then you'd have to be okay with that.
Yeah, you'd have to be happy with that offer.
If you want to offer me $20 for cornerstone, like
it's because it's the off season right now, right? No, but I mean, going back to your question about culture and creating that culture, we could probably dive into a few different elements on this, but I think like number one is the fish rots from the head down. And I got that quote from another entrepreneur, and it's kind of a weird quote, but what that is that like you too have to live and breathe the values that are within your company. Mm-hmm. You have to be passionate about what you do, and you really have to show that with your actions that you're passionate about it, because you can't trust, that anybody else is going to step in there and be more passionate than you. And when you do, that's someone that you really want to hold on to and really elevate within your organization. But it starts with the founders. You've got to be really passionate about it. Another thing that comes into mind, and I'm sure we'll ping pong back some questions about culture and so on. When I think specifically about the motivators, I mean, we have 3 different kind of sections of people that are on our teams, but specifically about the motivators, you can go and take a training course to be a spin instructor in one day. You can do a 1-day training course, but we have a pretty in-depth system with bringing on our motivators.
Like for the hiring kind of thing?
Who are contractors. Yeah, exactly. For the hiring. So first step, and this, back in the day, I'd sit down with you and I'd say, have a coffee with you and say, I got a good vibe. You want to be part of training? And then we had, as we grew, our team were like, well, okay, so whoever's closest with Andrew or goes for coffee with him or whatever and wants to be a motivator gets the opportunity. So we had to bring some like equitable processes into our business. And so part of the process is, number one, we get, I don't know if you do that with your people, but they send us a 60-second video application.
Cool. I remember hearing about that. That's so cool. And throw back to like us. We would just go to McDonald's, quick coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, your brother's cousin plays hockey. Nice, you're hired.
You must be an ace. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now it was literally a 5-minute interview. If we liked him, it was like, okay, yeah, you're on. Or just a quick phone interview. Okay, yeah, you're hired.
Yeah. The only counter I have to that though is that I need to like the person I hire. Yep. Some people are very qualified for the position I found, but if I actually I can just tell hey, would we go out for a coffee or a beer or dinner outside of work? Yeah. And my answer was no.
I would sort of counter that. Honestly,
that doesn't really work out.
I feel like sometimes those weird people that you hire that just you wouldn't get along with, quote unquote, or be friends with, sometimes end up being the best.
No, I don't want to be weird. Like with Steve, we're talking about weird people make kind of really interesting hires and stuff. It's just do we see eye to eye about and can we actually work through issues and whatnot? Sure. That being said, it can't all just be fluff and emotions. Yeah. There's got to be some strict boundaries.
Totally. I mean, I think there's a kind of fundamental human connection and value alignment that needs to be there for sure. Mm-hmm. And we like at the end of the day, we say we have such a diverse group at the studios, and ultimately I just say do you give a shit about the people that are in front of you in that room? We have all different shapes, body types, ages, genders, sexualities, everything as far as a motivator group that's represented in any group that we're doing, in any training group and in our community. And ultimately it's I just give a shit if you care about the people that are in that room, that you're there not for yourself. I tell people that our riders don't go and buy an admission ticket to go and watch the show. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's what it is, you may go to certain fitness studios and mind you, I'll say that there's so many amazing fitness studios, whether or not we align with them on a training or programming level, that have changed people's lives with what they do. So kudos to everybody that's in the game. And
For sure.
we can talk about game theory in a second, but and what I think about competition and so on. But for the applications, like
So
So
what are you looking for in that 60 seconds?
Here's step one. Yeah, step
one. I want to be a motivator. I saw an ad or whatever.
Yeah.
And I reach out. What happens?
Yeah. So we look at like how many people that we're going to need. Sometimes it's like we only need 10 people to run a training group, or even 5. We may get upwards of like 50 or 60 applications. And so they submit a 60-second application
with a video.
Yeah, with a video application. So I mean, being someone that needs to be comfortable outside of their comfort zone, this is a big thing, right? It's not it has nothing to do with how they look or anything like visually. It's, are they comfortable getting outside of their comfort zone to take a video of themselves? And even some of them do edited videos or sing like a rap or something. And you're like, okay. And the whole thought is like, is this somebody that our riders, let's say that they're teaching a class of 30 people that they've never met before. Is the rider going to come in and say like, okay, like, this person seems funny, or this person seems kind, or this person seems genuine, or this person, like there's something about that person that can create that connection. If you're too shy to step outside of your comfort zone, then it's really tough to break out of your shell. Or
run a class of 40 and actually be pumped up and get everyone going. Because it takes that personality. I've seen it before. Like you got to get like fired up there to motivate the 40 people to go spin for like an hour. You know.
But we've had some people that have come in and they come across as shy, but there's something about them. It's like, this person has a story to tell, or this person seems very kind. And ultimately for our biker gang, they need to be able to see themselves being friends, or seeing themselves being that person up on the podium. There's an aspirational aspect to people that are on that podium. I'm not sure if it's the same with yard dogs, but it's like there's an aspirational aspect that whether or not that's, this person is comfortable in their body, or, we have some people that are really fit. They're like, oh, I want to have that body. But the most time it's like this person is comfortable in the body that they have, or they're confident, or they're human, or they make mistakes and laugh it off, or, that's really what we try to promote. So first thing is applications. Second thing is they come for tryouts. So we give them, they prepare 2 tracks. We give them 1 track 24 hours before. Yeah. So it allows us to see like, okay, can you deal with last minute changes and be confident up there? Then they come in, we set them up on the bike, and we rate them on 3 different aspects. It's the athlete, the DJ, and the dancer. So athlete, what's your overall cardiovascular ability on that bike? Mm-hmm. Again, doesn't mean that they need to be a triathlete, but it's like, can you be up there and teach, even if it's a slower track, whatever, on the bike? DJ is like, their choice of music. Do they look like, does it seem like they enjoy what they're doing up there? And also, how do they interact with the room? Think of like a club DJ. And then dancers, like, do they have some ability to understand the flow of music, like how music is done?
Like the beats and all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and not necessarily, they don't need a dance background. Like, I didn't have a dance background. Mm-hmm. My dad was a professional ballroom dancer in Austria, in Vienna, where he grew up. Yeah. So maybe that musicality was kind of in my genes. Yes. But they have to have some sort of understanding of the musicality. And so then if they get selected, then they move into the training group, and the training group's 8 weeks long. So about 4.5 hours per week for 8 weeks.
Wow.
So when you think about like culture and talent and making sure that you have people that will stay with you, if you do a 1-day spin training course, easy come, easy go.
Wow.
You have to have an ability to see like, is someone willing to put in the time and the effort? And a lot of the people that come to us are people that were part of the biker gang. It changed their lives, or it was an incredible experience, and they want to do that for someone else. That's when we know. I'm like, hey, we'll train you on beat. We'll train you on cardio. We'll train you on the DJ side of things. Yeah. But you can't train that, like that innate desire to like share an experience that you genuinely had with someone else. Yeah. So I think going back to culture and how it can relate to a lot of the lawn care companies that might be listening in is like, what is your training and onboarding process? And like, are you putting in are you demanding enough time from your people to show you that they're actually passionate about what they do?
For sure. Yeah, and no, that's very intensive. That's pretty crazy. So when you're doing like that, auditing like on those like 3 things, it's like you and a couple like other people just watching them, and it's like in a room.
We friggin' party.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like at the end of the day, we want this person. It may, we have people that come in that they're just like, this was the craziest thing I ever did to apply. I don't even know if I'm going to make it through, but I just like wanted to do it for myself.
Yeah.
We're not like American Idol where we go up and we're sitting at a table and just judging. Like we party in there. Yeah. So like usually it'll be me, myself, or it'll be one of our trainers be in there, and like that person will be able to bring 2 people with them, and we're just jumping around the room, like wooing for them, like having it, obviously not be too distracting, but we want to celebrate the fact that they got up there, because some people that's their worst nightmare.
It'd be scary for me, honestly. That'd be something that I'd be like a bit worried about.
Public speaking next level.
But you're also on the bike, and then you gotta like, and you're out of breath. Yeah, and you're out of breath, and you're
like, I might fall off this thing, but ultimately we want, we've had motivators that have tried out multiple times, and then now they're motivators with us for years and years and years.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if I'd rather someone that tries out once and then has to come back and shows us that they're willing to put in the effort and come back. That's someone that wants to be there, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Of course, you have to have people that move through initially, but we want those people that don't make it through to have a great experience. We keep a pretty straight face after that of what's going to happen next if we move forward with you. We also video the tryouts. We also record the tryouts. Part of that is like game film. Like when I used to play football, we even have coaches in our team. Can talk about that in a second, but we have coaches that go and coach other motivators. It's like a peer-to-peer mentorship, and they'll go and GoPro each other, because just like game film on a football play, like we would watch practice film, and they'd be like, they'd slow it so far down and be like, Obrecht, you crossed your feet, you're going to end up on your ass. This is more so like, when you're teaching, sometimes you just black out and you don't notice that, and you're not looking at yourself in the mirror. So your form might be off and people mirror you, right? So anyways, we GoPro the tryouts. We send the person feedback if they want feedback on their tryout to come back. We send them the video. Because sometimes when they bring their friends in, they're like, yeah, we're amazing. There's no way. Like, if you don't get through, they're wrong, And so we adopted the GoPro stuff to say, like, here's the feedback and here's the film. So you can see what we're talking about, so that they know there's a level of trust there.
Feedback too.
And it creates like an objective standpoint too, that we're basing these interviews and the odds on. But you mentioned that you've had people like motivators with your company, like they come from all walks of life. You've got some NASA employees, coaches. Can you tell me a little bit about your team, and how many there are you, by the way?
Yeah, so our team is 280 people large.
Incredible.
Wow. But that's made up of, like, we have 90 motivators. And then we have a big group of front staff. So that's full-time, part-time staff. Then I have my senior leadership team. That there's 3 of us on the senior leadership team, while me and 3 others. And then we have a big group of actually volunteers. Like we have people that volunteer their time to help out at the front desk, and in exchange they get spin classes.
Cool. That's very smart.
Account. Yeah, it's also a great funnel for our teams, because like spin's not cheap. So a lot of those people are students, and spin's expensive, but they have a desire to be a part of a culture and a community and a team, and they don't want to go out to the bars all the time to meet people. And so it's a pretty fun environment that they can be a part of. They usually evolve to be our full-time, part-time staff or motivators in the end. But yeah, it's our motivating team, a lot of that group, it's fun because this is like their fun job, right? You can make some pretty good money. Like it's
being a motivator.
Like you can make some pretty good money. You can pay for your rent by being a motivator and so on, but it's not a full-time job. But it's their fun job.
But you can work out at the same time. That's pretty cool.
And us as a leadership, the big thing is like, how do we still make sure that they take it seriously as a job? While it being their fun thing. But we have teachers, we have parents, we have people that run hip hop dance studios. We have someone that works for NASA. We have doctors on the team. We have psychologists on the team. Like, it's really interesting.
Imagine, I have to do 3 triple bypass surgeries later today. 6 a.m. Let's go.
Yeah, we don't have any heart surgeons, but we have a researcher, a doctor on the team that works primarily within research on strokes. And they're spending their whole day like looking at how neurons are firing to try to, remedy or find cures or preventative measures or indicators for strokes, like at the University of Calgary research facility.
Is it Rob Moore? It's not Rob Moore, is it?
No.
Okay.
It was for sure Rob. Rob Moore's the king of strokes.
Yeah, exactly.
The guy looked like he lost strokes.
Oh, wow. Good for him. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so the team, the culture. So it's about being pretty... have a fun, engaging way for people to apply and come onto the team. But that being said, you said you had 10 positions and you're bringing 60 people sometimes in, and making sure you have some pretty strong filters along the way to create to the right type of people you're looking for.
Bring me back to I want to hear more about like just so when you went to that first location, you had like the 10%. Tell me more about like the business was going. How did you guys open up that second location? I heard stories like you guys opened up a second location. There's like styrofoam falling off the roof, doing like spin glass and all that.
Who have you been talking to?
I heard this from a podcast with you.
It
was honestly a podcast that you did with the EO group.
Oh,
it was like near like a stairwell 5 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, you learn a lot of things throughout the way, even like expansions and that kind of thing. So we opened up our second studio, and at that point in time, because we could show kind of the growth of the company, we were. The banks really loved us.
And what did you need to actually have in revenue at one location before you could justify it's time to open number 2?
Yeah, it's interesting because one of our studios might do like around $450,000 to $700,000 a year in revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. But like when you look at it right now, like our expenses on a monthly basis are between $215,000 and $230,000 a month. In expenses
for one location?
For all of our studios.
Got it. Okay, I was like, what
location? I was like, wait, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
5 locations.
So it's really interesting. Like if you look on like a gross margin basis, like the business is insane. Like we're at about 83% gross margin. So once you hit that capacity per studio and per class, it really gets exciting as far as a business. Yeah. But it is cost intensive. As a business to expand, that's our biggest capital expenses is that expansion and build out. Any one of our studios will cost between $400,000 and $600,000 to build out.
Wow! How much is a bike?
Really?
Yeah. So our bikes, like the new bikes, are around like $2,800 a bike.
Jeez.
Now, a lot of the stuff and it helped us out, when we dealt with some impacts from COVID, is that we don't have a lot of assets. And so, when we went through a lot of stuff with COVID and had the banks coming after us, all of a sudden, like servicing debt, which was a pretty stressful time, we didn't have a lot of assets in the business. So they couldn't just shut us down and go and sell off a bunch of our trucks or whatever it might be. Right. And so we leased everything that we had. So the bikes were leased. A lot of stuff was leased, and so our assets were mainly kind of built into our studios, but the build outs,
So the bikes are not, even though you're leasing them, it wasn't like, it was like an operating lease. It wasn't like on the balance sheet.
Yeah. Like it was about $300 or $3,000 a month per studio for having like 47 bikes or something like that. And then after 3 years, you own the bikes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, to expand the studio, I mean, the biggest thing, and that was a really great learning lesson. And, we went up to 5 studios before the pandemic, down to 4, up to 7, down to 5. We've got 5 now.
Nice.
So there were some learning lessons in there, like expanding when we shouldn't have expanded, red flags that we had, like landlords giving us deals that in hindsight were like, why did we agree to that? Signing personal guarantees that we ended up having to, like I lost that previous partner. He decided to move on to different things after kind of this past year or like last summer. Yeah. But we had to go through some personal pain after that kind of stuff. But, expansion, I think right now when you're in a city, you got to make sure that you don't, rob Peter to pay Paul in the sense of locations. You got to make sure that you understand your geographic, like where your customers are coming from. Usually with us, it's about a 5-minute drive radius from us.
Yeah.
And so you got to make sure that you don't all of a sudden open up another studio and it steals from another studio.
Yeah.
Right?
So Kensington was first, and then was second Avenida?
Kensington was first, then Marteloup, then Edmonton.
Okay.
But it was interesting because last year we had to make a tough decision after 10 years with Kensington to shut down that location. And part of the decision was because, University District in Marteloup, Kensington was right in between.
I see.
Yeah.
So we also saw indicators of like the work from home, like people weren't going downtown as much.
Yeah.
Kensington changed a lot in 10 years and, parking wasn't as good. So there's a lot of factors with us that we had to make a tough decision, and Kensington was profitable, but there was the overhead there, right? So if we shut down that studio, we would have saved 35, 40 grand a month on the overhead.
I see.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So
that's one of my favorite business terms, actually. So like this whole thing we're talking about, where one location steals from another, it's called cannibalization.
Yeah.
One business's customers are coming from just your other location. You're not actually growing. You're just being busy. Okay, so now we're at 5 studios right now between Calgary and Edmonton.
Yeah, and Vancouver.
Vancouver now.
Vancouver. Okay.
Yeah, so we have it's YYC in Calgary, YEG in Edmonton, and YVR in Vancouver. So.
Cool.
Another great learning lesson, don't get a bigger facility than you need. We have some studios, the ideal size is kind of 2,100 to 2,500 square feet. Edmonton, we have one that's 3,500. It's great. It's beautiful, way bigger than we need. But that came from an expropriation. So we actually had a studio on 124th in Edmonton. Spent about $600K building it out, and then all of a sudden 2 years in we got a letter from the city and they said, we're expropriating this land. Essentially they're taking the land back and you've got 8 months to vacate your premises.
No way.
And so you pay into a studio, like Marteloup, when we built out the studio, before we opened, we were like, where's the front desk? And our architects and designers were like, we are not bringing in the front desk. We're like, why not? They're like, that's like 30 grand. We're like, what? In what world are we spending 30 grand on our front desk?
Yeah,
so there's
table, slap it down. iPad, we're open for business.
There's some, there's some things that you learn along the way. Expropriation. Look at your clauses when you're getting new locations.
I've never even heard that term actually. So what could you just define what that means? Yeah.
So if there is a demolition clause or an expropriation clause within your lease, that can mean that the landlord is subject to city coming in. Like a demo clause is the landlord potentially could want to rebuild that location into condo buildings or whatever. So that could be something that pops up. And
that's scary.
When a city expropriates a land, let's say that it's due like in Edmonton for a train line. So all of a sudden 2 years in, we spent $600K. You think that you're amortizing that over the course of your lease, like 10 years plus if you have options.
Yeah.
That's a great payback period, right? That you're like, okay, this money is well spent.
Yeah.
But then they came and we're like, shit. So all of a sudden we had 8 months. We prolonged it. The city did compensate us for what we spent for that, but we had to show them that we got something else that was equal to what we spent there. They wouldn't pay us more. Which was tough because you don't want to, we started building riders there, and then we had to find something that was close. And like a location 2 blocks away that's you can't turn right on. That's like Avenida. Like it was tough to get into.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You can that business can be a totally different business on the other side. So we had to find a new location, negotiated for. We found something that was way bigger than we needed. We love it now. But we had to then spend more money than we spent at that first studio, and the city only compensated for what we spent in that first studio.
Wow.
And that land, 3-4 years later, is still not a train station.
No way. So you could have just been there the whole time.
We had to shut down and had one studio operating and try to move over our team, our biker gang, like all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And we're like, and the city's just taking their sweet time. So yeah, that was an interesting lesson.
Wow, that is crazy. So it's sort of like eminent like domain. They can just kind of just take it basically. And just,
There is clauses as far as like expropriations that they can come into it. I'm not a lawyer, so
that's
bring it up to your lawyer.
No, that's crazy, dude. That's really
even
crazy.
like for you guys, right? And a lot of like industrial land that a lot of the people watching probably want to go get cheaper space in industrial land. Well, you don't know if the city has a project there to build out affordable housing or condos or something to maybe consider.
I don't have to go open the lease up.
Yeah,
no, that's insane.
So Andrew, how did this? Obviously, this is being an entrepreneur, but doesn't mean it's not stressful. Like these obstacles are real. Yeah. How did you personally cope with this stuff? Because that sounds like a nightmare.
And was this like the biggest like speed bump you've ever faced, like what you like just described, or was there something bigger?
No,
that sounds like absolute. We went through hell like last year. We can get into that a bit, but that to me sounds like wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's.
Oh my gosh, you're opening up a can of worms in this as far as like obstacles. Like,
and this was what year again?
The expropriation was about 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about 2017, 2018 that happened. So on the horizon was COVID.
Yeah.
Right after we opened up that new studio is when our first partner approached us and wanted to get bought out.
Oh, okay.
And they had come to us saying that like, well, here's the number that I want based on the amount of studios that we have. And I've been thinking about this for 9 months. And we're like, we just opened up 2 new studios in the last 9 months. So of course there's, so anyways, but that's a whole other road to go down. But no, when you look at like obstacles within the business, like I don't know where we want to start. Like there's a lot of obstacles on the people side. Early on in the business, it's natural that this business attracts like-minded individuals that believe in the same thing or interested in the same thing. Mm-hmm. Where I'm going with that is that like I had a couple of relationships with some motivators earlier on. So on a personal side, and that was like they were really great people, and I really learned a lot from the relationships. And I still stand true to people that like, hey, listen, if you fall in love as someone on our team, great. Just try to be the best person that you can be if it doesn't end up working.
Gotcha, yeah.
But that was very stressful. I don't need to go on a 45 minutes about talking relationships, but that was earlier on in the business. And I had a couple relationships with people that work for us. Would I recommend it as an owner of a business? No. But I still stand true to like, listen, like there just needs to be very firm boundaries of understanding that like if this doesn't work out, we have to understand the impact on the company. Yeah, sure. Because there was some big impacts on the company, and I had to navigate it and be very vulnerable with people and sometimes rebuild trust with certain people of like, okay, what does this look like as an owner, as someone that should be trustworthy, that our team wants to look up to, but also is human, and goes through human things.
So you're dating some like a motivator on the team.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then you guys broke up after?
Yes. Okay. I'm now happily married. With one amazing boy and another baby on the way in May. And, Jillian, we met through mutual friends, but we also trained at a gym. She also had been to my spin class, but that's not like, that wasn't my recruiting mechanism.
You got feathers burnt out.
Yeah. I mean, I also talked to, like, again, I won't hold back love. If you and sometimes you fall in love and it doesn't become a everlasting love. But I won't, it'd be pretty hypocritical if one of my people, started a relationship. The only thing I say is like, have the talk if it's not going to work out. Of the impact, like, and hopefully you can be cordial. And if not, then either one or both of you may not be in this company, right? We just have to have a real conversation. But anyways, that was a challenging obstacle. Again, it all of those learning lessons on a personal side led me to my amazing wife that I love. You talk obstacles, what's the most challenging? That was very challenging on the personal side.
I see. Yeah.
Right? When all of a sudden, I really feel like as an owner, especially depending on the community you have, we're very forward facing. And we're a family, but as a CEO or as an owner of a company, you run by a set of different rules than everybody else does. Now it's interesting with that because you can take that two ways. One builds trust, one erodes it, right? One is like you can do whatever the hell you want. It doesn't matter. That's going to erode trust in your teams. The other way is that you need to set the example. Like you need to set the example that you're human and you can still screw up, and it's important to own up to your mistakes. Yeah. But you have to do that quicker than you expect your team to. Mm. You have to be humble. You have to be open. And hey, if you screw up, your team's going to notice, right? So that's a big one. Yeah. You know, other obstacles, I'm sure there's so many more, but like on the business partnership side, when you look at like a legal partnership, like I mentioned, not having a USA or a shotgun clause in your USA, going through that negotiation, at that point in time, that partner, their wishes were that we didn't tell the team, which you respect your partner's wishes. We didn't, but then it was a year and a half later. Mm-hmm. So that starts to come out. So how do you navigate, someone that just was not involved in the business for a year and a half, but people asking like, where's this person in the business? Trying to navigate that. So on the legal side, that's interesting. On the landlord and location side, we've had landlords that have come into us and again, ask us to, well, you got to shut down and you guys have to redo your ceiling because the sound is penetrating through to the apartments above.
Man.
Then you deal with COVID coming up.
I couldn't even imagine. If you want to talk a little bit about that, 'cause I couldn't believe they are shutting down gyms. Like during like the biggest mental health crisis. Obviously, gyms make a big difference with mental health. It did for me.
Oh, right? Big. I think before people are ever prescribed onto medications or antidepressants, gym membership. And let's see how that's going to change things. Anyways, how did you guys pivot during COVID? Because you obviously had to do some temporary changes.
That must have been hell.
Yeah. And when you talk about it, like there's even through COVID and stuff, you talk about resiliency. Like one is that again, I always think the problem's not the problem, it's your reaction to the problem. Two, the mantra that I really developed through COVID, especially in the last like year and a half when there were some really dark days. Like for me, there were some very dark days. I remember sitting there looking at my son and just like bawling my eyes out, just like, like talking to my wife that we got married 2 years ago in the middle of COVID, and also had a baby during COVID and also got a dog during COVID. Like we checked all the COVID boxes. But talking to my wife and being like, this is the reality of what's going on. And I want to be sure that you still want to marry me, like some very real conversations, which ended up bringing us so much closer together. I'm like, okay, if she's in this with me now, like we're good for life, but there's some very dark days. And, another mantra that I kind of told myself in the last year and a half was, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And no matter what was happening, like there was some stuff that like even some of my EO forum mates were like, well, it's okay if you feel like that's happening to you, because it really it's
pretty shitty, not gonna lie.
It's pretty shitty, right? But for me, I was like, whatever happened, I was like, okay, this is happening for me. This is happening for me. Why is this happening for me? And it got my mind in a mentality of trying to find answers or trying to find reasons as to why this is happening for me. Mm-hmm. Is this teaching me resiliency? What is this teaching me that will serve me well in my future business endeavors and wherever this is growing? But COVID was wild, and we were shut down for 10 months. Like doors shut.
Wow, imagine zero revenue.
Yeah, like imagine you guys sitting here for 10 months being like, well, you kind of do that.
Sounds like the opposite. Sounds like we got the dirt life, thankfully.
Yeah, sounds like the opposite for sure.
10 months, no revenue shut down.
Yeah, 10 months, doors shut.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
Jeez.
10 months, doors were shut. Yeah. Mandated, and a lot of like just confusion as to what this was. And again, you said like in a health crisis, you have these places that promote physical and mental health and support that, and those are shut down too. So there was a lot of things, but also respecting that a lot of people went through it in many different ways, right? And so we had our team, a lot of our team were affected by it in a lot of different ways, like family members affected. So we had an obligation to kind of look at who our riders were, who our team were, and trying to support people as best as we could. But yeah, shut down for that long. And then we were kind of 5 months, less than 20% capacity. And it was really interesting because we looked to like open studios up and try to time the market. Don't do that. But, we had like Kenny's best summer ever, which just led us into vaccine mandates and Omicron, Stampede opened up and that kind of thing. So as a seasonal business for us too, like, let's talk about it. Like September until kind of May, June is our busy season, which is probably a better busy season than you guys. But you try to time that. Like this past fall was the first time that we could see, okay, what is this thing going to do? What is this thing going to do? Because the previous fall, people were still, I think, jaded from the previous fall that was vaccine mandates and Omicron. Yeah. So last, not this past fall, but the one before, people were like, well, we're maybe not going to buy a membership. Maybe there's going to be shutdowns. Maybe there's this. This is the year that we can actually see what is this business going to do coming out of it. Wow. But many dark days.
Couldn't even imagine, dude. Yeah, like luckily we were okay. It was actually good for yard dogs. Like people were home, right? But I couldn't even imagine. I felt so bad for like all the gyms, whatever. And I was like, I need to go to like the gym. Yeah. Like it was terrible.
There's gyms and restaurants that are really soft spot for. So like, especially if you have family restaurant, like you're not rolling in cash. Like, this isn't like a McDonald's franchise. This is a local family business.
Yeah. But I mean, to us, you look at the pressures that we faced as a business. We can't do curbside pickup of a spin class.
That's true.
Yeah. We decided to. We had a lot of pressure from people being like, even team members that were like, why aren't they doing online spin classes? Yeah. Well, we didn't because we're not in the business of spin classes. Mm-hmm. We're in the business of community.
Yeah, that's it.
So like, okay, and there were times that we're like, oh shit, do we do it? But you look at Peloton came out, and Peloton, like their stock price is lower than it's ever been right now, and just tanked after COVID. But they were killing it. Mm-hmm. How are we going to compete with someone that's venture backed? That has like the best video quality, the best editing, they pump so much money into it. We can't get on that level without going even further in debt. Mm-hmm. And then at the same point, that's not our business model. And my whole philosophy at that point in time was we were 7 years in business. I'm like, even if this thing is like a year, right? Even this shutdown lasts 8 months. That'll be a blip in our story. Yeah. So do we change our whole business model off of just a blip? This is only going to be a few months.
Bad. Yeah, exactly. You can feel like it was peaking, and then now
2 weeks, and we are going to level out the curve, and then we're back. We're not going to do online classes. Yeah. So for us, like there was a lot of people that were like, "Why are you guys not doing online classes?" But what ended up to be true, and what we thought was like when we were able to reopen, there's a lot of studios that really shot themselves in the foot because.
Your studios are just general studios?
Just general studios because, like our drop-in price now is $28 per drop-in, but certainly you can take memberships that drop it down to like $18, $20 a time. But if you look at the drop-in price of $28, like, Peloton was giving months away for free. 30 free days. Okay, how do you compete with that? A lot of studios were doing it like $20 a month. And so then on the other side of the pandemic, now you've split your riders. Now you don't know. Do we shut down this? Are people going to come back? We don't have enough people coming back, but your landlords still want full rent. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yeah. You got to make a big decision. And some of them, unfortunately, went under. Yeah. That may have been a factor.
Customer expectations is very important too. You start giving out $20 a month. They expect that even after the things. How did your guys' retention go? Because a big thing that lawn care companies have to focus on is that we, in a way, are a subscription. Like people subscribe to having a green, healthy, weed-free lawn, and their services continue the following year unless they let us know. What would you guys? How did a COVID impact your retention? Like if you had 100% retention going into COVID, how many people were you able to hold on to, and how did you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting on a retention basis. So we split our passes between just like pass packages, like a 5 pass, 1 pass, 10 pass, whatever it might be.
Okay. So those don't expire too.
Yeah. They have like a year expiry. Yeah. And then we have our memberships, right? And so well, what do you do when people can't spin? They don't want to keep their memberships, or you freeze their memberships. So what's interesting is like the biggest thing is that we built the biker gang over the last, this March will be 10 years that we're celebrating. And so our biggest asset is our community, our biker gang, and then also our community internally. So we were able to navigate that as best as possible, that a lot of our internal community, our motivators have other jobs and that kind of stuff. It sucked for the front staff. We did use a lot of the loan money to keep them employed and paid up and so on. But the external community, they canceled their memberships. And so that all went out the door. And then when we reopened, we honored everybody's passes. So if someone had like a 1 year pass and they were 6 months in, well, when we reopened, they had 6 months of free spin. So they already paid for it. So all those classes were zero.
Yeah. Oh, man,
and so you look at that takes some time. The second thing is that, any fitness routine, it's inertia, right? Like it's tough to get back into a fitness routine.
Yep.
So we've seen now the momentum is really starting to come back, and that's what we've seen in the fitness industry, which is great. But again, it's September. September's kind of the pre-January, it's like September, and then January, it really kind of picks up. Then you also look at like last year was the nicest fall ever. It was so hot until into November, and so seasonality plays into it too.
The colder it is, the better for you guys, right?
Yeah, not too cold, but the first snowfall, like I'm like, babe, look outside, it's snowing.
We're doing like, let's go. Long hair snow is coming. Like,
we are doing different dances.
That's awesome.
Sure. Yeah, but it's it was crazy. But even in COVID, right? Like, you need to you represent your team and you represent your riders, right? And so, we also saw. When vaccine mandates came in, we mandated vaccines within our studios. That was a really tough decision to do. But we also saw that when Omicron was coming, people weren't spinning anymore. So there was a level of comfort that created, that as soon as we decided to do that 2 weeks before the government did it, we saw an automatic doubling in our attendance and revenue. So it was a business decision just as much as like a community decision, what was important to our people. And but that was tough. We had people like calling saying that they're going to throw bricks through our windows and burn down our studios and yelling at our staff. And so there was no side from like a consumer facing business that you were going to be right. So that was really tough.
Yeah, those were crazy times, man. The COVID years, those were some weird, crazy times.
Yeah,
but God forbid we see that again.
That's the business.
That was
But it's there's a lot of companies that are dealing with that hangover, that debt hangover now, restaurant industry, clubs.
Sure,
There's also a lot of companies that crushed it during the pandemic.
We helped them,
that are now seeing like, oh shit, their business is not coming back as much as they wanted to.
And they hired so many people and stuff and bought stuff to accommodate this new demand.
Yeah, exactly.
That was temporary.
Tell me more about like the revenue and all that stuff. So like, what are you guys doing like right now for revenue across all 5? And what was your peak revenue ever in the business?
Yeah, so the peak revenue was 4.9.
Nice.
And we're on track. Awesome. We're on track to do like 3.2 this year. And so again, it depended on different studios that we had, different timing, competition in the market, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And what was the revenue like during COVID? Like what did it go down to? Was it
flatline?
Just wow.
Like it was pure cost.
Gosh.
Like it cost us millions of dollars during COVID to make even survive on the other side. And then there was a whole new set of problems on the other side when the banks said, okay, you need to service that debt, and then there's no way with fitness that you could service the debt that was expected from some of those loans. But
did you ever think about quitting during that time? How close were you?
No.
Attaboy.
Let's go.
Fuck yeah.
Classic entrepreneur. Like it's terrible. It's like pouring like bricks outside, but I ain't quitting. I'm going in today.
I think the biggest thing, like, thank God for my son and my wife, that I just was like, I want to be able to sit with Rowan one day, my son, and say like, I did everything that I could to see that business and community survived. Like, and I did even my previous partner, like, you know, we took on some pretty big personal pain with what we had to do with the business. But I was like, if the community is going to survive and if the people are going to survive, then that's a price that I'm willing to pay for that. And I just said, I want to be able to tell my son that I did everything that I could to push through. Now, you know, even with that apparel business, like I probably should have like seen the writing on the wall, and that's just knowing your numbers, right? And being like, this thing is not, but we saw the momentum. We saw the indication that people, you know, this was coming back, that health and wellness, especially mental health, was even more important on the other side. That people that were really afraid of adverse effects of COVID during COVID because they weren't physically fit, or just like participating in physical activity, or like so impacted on the mental health component that needed community. I'm like, this is going to be bigger on the other side. And we've yet to see it, but that was the belief. Yeah. But ultimately it was like, I want to be able to tell my son that I didn't give up.
That's awesome, man. Because that's some crazy tough times, man. Yeah. But no, like that's unreal. So 4.0 is your peak. You're going for 3.2 this year. And what are the profits, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. The top was 4.5.
4.5. Okay.
Yeah. And sorry, your question was?
And what's your profits like looking like as a percentage roughly?
Yeah, like we in the past, and we've had to reinvest into the business. Yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff here, so maybe I'll just look in the past as an indicator of what's possible. But we had, like at the peak, we had a net margin of 29% at one point in time.
That's insanely good, man.
Which is
that's
wild.
Really good.
Yeah, but there's so many factors that play into it, right?
Yep, for sure.
And we're exploring different opportunities now. Like, you know, one of the newest things is actually renting out our studio space, like on the downtimes, to like a yoga teacher that wants to come and do yoga. We'll move the bikes and have them do like a yoga class under like our epic lights in there, and that kind of stuff. We
sublease kind of temporary.
Airbnb
for yoga.
Exactly. But we do we do school groups, like phys ed groups come in and we rent the space outside of class times and that kind of stuff. Yeah. We also integrate ourselves into companies like wellness programs. So we have like a marketing company, for instance, in Calgary. They have an amazing office, but they don't have a gym inside their office space. And they would be losing out to some of these bigger players that have all these facilities and amenities. So we go in and we provide a package for their entire staff, their entire staff have unlimited spin for a fraction of the cost. So we pick like $1 per person per month.
Oh, cool.
Because per employee, we know that not 100% of their employees are going to be spinning, but we need to hit like $1 per time that they come. But they get to tell their employees, like, we, as part of being part of our company, you have unlimited spin at YYC Cycle and YEG and YVR.
Cool. That's nice. That's a win-win. Is that pod marketing?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I mean, their staff go and look at what an unlimited membership is. And they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I can do the math. Pod's spending a lot of money. Now they're investing in their team. It does cost them something, but it's a fraction of the cost to building out their own gym or spin studio or whatever. Yeah. And it creates that connection outside of the office. So, you know, we look at all opportunities to kind of expand our revenue as well as increase our profit without diluting what we are, right? Like, you're never going to, we don't believe in like being a jack of all trades and ace at none. Like we won't see us doing like a spin and core class or something like that.
Some bicep schooling,
we know what we're best at. Yeah.
I think investing in your team benefits things like this, these affiliate programs. Like from the
really
business, like if you look at the problem, some guys, engineers in particular, they look at the Excel sheet. He's an engineer, so I can rip on them. And my whole family's engineers.
I was a business student, so
there you go. They look at the Excel sheets and they'll be like, why would I purchase dental care, vision care, these YYC Cycle, all these memberships? Because on a ROI it makes all sense, but what they forget to look at is the fact that retaining your employees is huge, and how much you spend when you're looking for a new person in marketing your Indeed ads, and every time you hire someone, you are rolling the dice. Keeping people on board and the right people, that is invaluable.
Not only just that, but also just having them like having a good at mental health and being good at fitness, like a healthy body is a healthy mind too. So not only is it like the retention, but also if they come to work more motivated and better shape, that's going to have a better ROI too, right?
If they're at their best, they're going to bring their best to work.
Exactly.
And if somebody starts slacking, it's because something in their personal life all of a sudden there's some hardship going on. They're not feeling good anymore.
Yeah. There's a lot of case studies on what the impacts of physical fitness and having like a corporate wellness program does to impact, to reduce, to increase overall staff well-being, to decrease sick days, to decrease workplace injuries, to, like, you think of you guys, right? And the contractors that you guys have. You have people that spend the off season, not all of them are staying physically fit, but you guys have a physically demanding a physically demanding business.
For sure.
Well, there's an opportunity for you to support your people on that side too, of like, hey, whether or not that's a boot camp or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And
do you know any spin studios we can maybe talk to?
Yeah, do you know anyone like?
maybe. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you increase your cardio, your team's going to be moving a lot quicker. I don't know if you guys time each other, right? How long it takes to do every square foot or square yard of yard. But
we do actually. Yeah,
there you go. But there's some really big benefits to that, and that's something that we're really leaning into as well.
Cool. Tell me a bit more, Andrew, about the charity. I remember, like, when I first was in the EOA program, you stood up, because you're one of the coaches.
Yeah.
And I heard of you guys, because I always drove by, like, your office.
Cool.
In Mara Loop, right? And you stood up, you're like, I have 280 employees, and I donate over $500,000 to charity, and this and that. Tell us more about the charity.
Yeah.
I really want to hear about that, because I know that you guys do, like, a vote or whatever, but I want to hear more about, like, how that works.
Yeah, it's cool. And I think that there's a really great advantage to any business to give back to the communities that they're in. Right.
Yeah.
And so for us, the big thing was when we first opened up the studios, and to clarify, the biker gang has helped us donate. It wasn't me donating to these charities, but
thank you for saying that. Yeah. Sometimes I'm at Costco, like, do you want to donate $10 to this charity? And at the end of the year, Costco's, we donated $5 million. Like, your customers did. It wasn't you. Exactly. Unless you matched. But sorry.
Yeah. And it's an interesting nuance on that too, because for us, even with the CRA, like you can't exchange a service for a donation. And so I'll get into that in a second, but we found a creative way that's still above board for us to make an impact on the community and have our riders decide where the money's going towards. So when we first opened up business, like, my dad is an entrepreneur and always said, like, free attracts free. And so there are things that we'll give away for free or whatever it might be, but we thought that, hey, a lot of gyms open up and for the first week it's all free.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Free membership. Yeah.
You spend so much time as a brand, building your brand, building everything. Like, look at these dogs. Like, you didn't just,
they're very expensive. Don't get into it.
But you didn't throw that together. You're very intentional. You put a lot of investment into your business and your brand. And then you tell your people, you're like, yes, but we're worth nothing. So come and spend nothing with us because we're worth nothing. You look at, like, perceived value. We talked about that during COVID. Yeah. But for us, we're like, what we're going to do is the first week that we open, we're going to run, all the classes are going to be half price and they're all going to go towards charity. That money is going to come in as revenue, and this is the whole above board with CRA and stuff. Money's going to come in as revenue. That's going to be a corporate donation, just because, like you talk about Costco. But we want our riders' input on where that money goes towards and where our corporate dollars go towards. And so we said, listen, I've been a part of studios that opened and said, first week it's all free. 60% of those people are there because it's free.
Yeah,
they may not even try as hard. I'm sure everybody's talked to someone that they're like, oh, how was the class? You're like, it was good, but it was free. So
they don't put as much effort into it. They don't value it. They don't value it.
They pay something, so they put something into it, right? So we said, like, let's do half price drop-ins. It all goes towards charity. And then I'll talk about the voting component, because that's really powerful, right? And so then what we did is that every Friday, whenever we open up a new studio, we have our Giver Week. It's like give''R, like giver.
Oh, yeah.
And then every Friday we have a class on Friday night that's called our Giver class, and it's half price drop in, and it goes towards charity. Like, all the proceeds go towards charity.
Friday. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like we take the costs. Like, there's a small cost to run the class, but everything above that goes towards charity.
Oh, cool. Okay, I see.
And so then what we did on top of that, we wanted our people to be a part of that process and really be a part of, like, the, where this money goes towards. You could think of it as a business, like Yard Dogs gives away to association that works with allergies, whatever it is, you know. But I'm sure we could think of something
some
better.
Sort of connection.
Some sort of connection.
Adopt a dog. Shelters.
That would be a great connection, right? And people love pets, right? Yeah. So, but for us, there's so many. Our riders are so diverse. It would be easy to say that we gave to like the Heart and Stroke Foundation.
Yeah.
And then you are irrelevant eventually because people just know, oh, it's Heart and Stroke Foundation. It's not. So what we do is every quarter we go out to our ridership and we say, hey, we're picking our new giver charity. We want you to nominate a registered charity. Mm-hmm. And important, we've gone through some obstacles with that too, but registered charity. And then from there, we pick 3 out of a hat. We put all the nominations, and then we put it back to social media. So there's a huge social media, like comments, like it's real big engagement.
Well, yeah.
Then you pick 3 out of a hat. You go back to social media and say, here's the 3 we picked out of a hat. Vote 1, 2, or 3. And the one with the most votes is going to be the one that goes. So huge social engagement, huge buy-in. And then we pick the winning charity, right? And it's different for Edmonton, different Calgary, different Vancouver. Yeah. It allows your riders to feel like they themselves have a part of your business, and that part of your business is giving back to an organization that they care about.
Yeah, for sure.
People love babies and puppies, so we have lots of those from time to time. Yeah. But we've, in the last 10 years, the biker gang's raised over $940,000.
Amazing. Wow. That is so cool.
To all those charities, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're still around is the impact on the community. Yes, during COVID, if we had that money, that would have helped out a lot, but we wouldn't have even made it there, I think, if we didn't choose somewhere to give back to. But because we do it every quarter, we're relevant. There's a new way to be relevant every quarter with these charities.
All that stuff. I like that a lot.
As opposed to Heart and Stroke Foundation, which is great, and we've donated towards them. Mm-hmm. But, there's some that it's like the ARCs for animals, and then others it's the NICU, and then others it's the Center for Suicide Prevention, and it's really cool.
And the local charity.
The local charity, I think that's really cool too.
It's cool for the community.
Yeah, well, Edmonton donates to like an Edmonton Calgary. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But so you guys just take the revenue every Friday, minus the cost, and then that's what goes every quarter.
I mean, we don't do it we donate after the quarter's done, but that's the process of it, right?
Here's what's cool about that too. You still have them pay something as they go into, so people never disassociate the value of it. People need to pay something there. So Alex from Mosey, you've seen Alex, Jack guy, he'd come to Cincinnati of yours. When he started, he wasn't comfortable asking people to buy training sessions from him. So what he said is like, hey, I'm willing to train you for this amount, but I need you to donate $500 to a charity of your choice.
Yeah, don't pay me.
That way, they associated the value of it. Yeah, and then once it was done, it's like, hey, we're all done. By the way, there's a new charity. It's the charity of Alex. I would love to continue doing services for you and stuff. And people like that, they never associated his services for free.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. $940,000 to charity. That's a testament. That's a testament.
When are you going to hit the million? Is it going to be this year?
I'd probably say in the next couple of years we'd probably hit million that the biker gangs helped raise, right? Incredible. And we put into that, like we've done some really big charity events. Like we did a spin-a-thon for the Prostate Cancer Center before they opened. Some of our riders were part of the Prostate Cancer Center, so we raised like $70,000 in a day doing a spin-a-thon at the studio. Then we also participate in what's called Ride the Roof. We take like 150 bikes to the rooftop of the Marriott Hotel downtown and do it with a charity called Love for Lewiston.
I heard about that.
But it's for the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation, and so there's some bigger events that we take part in, and we've done some cool stuff like that. We've rode our bikes. It just reminded me because I went and saw City in color yesterday with Jillian, and we at the Jubilee with Michael Bernard Fitzgerald, local musician here in Alberta. We 2 shows. We rolled our bikes up on stage and rode them in like the encores.
No way.
In his show. We choreographed, choreographed some, but then he just went longer and longer. So we were like doing this thing for 20 minutes. So like, Mike, we gotta be done here. Yeah. But we've done some really cool stuff for the community.
Awesome.
No, that really stands out. That's one big thing that with like YYC, whenever I think of you guys, I always think of like big charity and giving back. It's always been like one thing I've really thought of with you guys. One thing I do want to ask, so I know you said you do 240 spin classes per week. One thing I always think of is like single point of failure, and you're always depending on these people to show up. How many times have there been like just no shows where like you have 40 people going to a class and like the instructor doesn't show up?
Yeah,
I'd imagine that would happen. Yeah, sleeps in.
Yeah,
what happens?
Yeah,
with that?
It doesn't happen very often.
Okay,
but it has happened.
Got it. Okay,
and we've learned some stuff along the way with that. Like, you know, our motivators are contractors, right? So we hire them as contractors. So there's a different set of rules for them too. But at one point in time, we, I hope I'm not like putting myself in a sticky situation, but at one point in time, years ago, only happened for 1 week. And then we realized it wasn't good. But what we did is there was all of a sudden, there was a bunch of no-shows that happened. And so we said, okay, this is how it goes. Because it's a huge cost. If it's a packed room, it's a huge cost to us. It's a huge cost to the community, and there's a lot of ripple effects. So what we do is if a motivator doesn't show up, we'll not only comp that person's pass, but we'll comp them 2 extra passes onto their account. So it's a huge cost if it's a full room, but we need to go above and beyond so that person can reinstill trust in us and the motivator themselves. But we did it at one point in time. We said, if you miss a class, it's going to cost you $300. But if someone saves that class, because our front team is trained, if a motivator's not there 30 minutes before class, to go out on Slack, that's a communication platform we use. SOS, is there another motivator that can make it out here on time?
It's like most GoPros.
And so we said, we'll just pay you the $300 if you save the day. Like, it's not about the company making the money. We need there to be enough pain that you're going to set 3 alarms. And if someone else saves it, but then we found out like you actually can't do that. You actually can't charge someone a fee.
You're going to charge the rider $300?
No, we charge the motivator.
$300.
So that would be a penalty to that contractor that we would then pay to the other person.
I think it's a good idea.
It was a great idea. Figured out, well, it might not be totally on side. It worked, but now we've got some pretty good processes. It doesn't happen that often. We also have these things called POPs, like POPs, which is pieces of paper. So first piece of paper, if someone misses this is kind of a disciplinary measure that we use. First thing something happens, I'll sit down with you and tell you about, this is what's not aligned with our values or what happened. I'll send you a follow-up email. You need to send me an email that you got it and you heard what I had said. Like what I wrote you in that email follow-up is exactly what you heard as far as the expectations we have. The second one is I have another conversation with you and you need to send me an email first. Like I need to understand what you heard because obviously something's not landing. The third piece of paper is we let you go. Is your termination.
2 strikes.
So 2 strikes and no shows, and then okay.
Yeah,
so that was like one thing.
Unless it's something totally against our values, then we'll fire somebody right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You gonna say that?
Oh no, I was just very curious because it's like 240 depending on one person. Like how do you keep that going, right? Like right. But no, that's very interesting. But yeah, I want to hear more. Like, what's the goal for YYC Cycle? Like, what's your 5-10 year plan? Like, franchise, corporate, go across Canada.
I mean, it's exciting. Like one thing was getting through this, and there were some big kind of things with the business this past year that we went through. Now that we're kind of on the other side of this, there's still some headwinds to manage, but we're seeing the momentum within the community and the businesses kind of getting out on the other side. For us, growth is on the horizon for sure. We're not sure what that looks like, but we definitely across Canada, we are looking at opportunities. Like in Vancouver, there was another big player in the spin, the international spin scene that dropped out of Canada. So we took over their location, which was great. So it saved us kind of the money that it cost to build out a studio. But I think for us, we want to continue to grow.
Hell yeah.
At the end of the day, I want a great company, not a big company.
Yeah.
We've gone to 7 and then had to go down to 5. So for us, yes, we do want to be across Canada. We're looking at some rebranding opportunities within the business.
Really?
So that we can kind of be a bigger player on a global scale, or like on a national scale, and then see what that looks like even to the US.
Cool.
But the team, the team's been through the ringer. over the last few years. So sometimes, if right now I said we're opening up another studio in the next couple months, they might lose it. So now it's, I talk to the team to say, like, what's really important now is to do what's necessary. Mm-hmm. Then we can do what's possible, and then we can do what's impossible.
Nice.
So for us, the focus, like, into the fall is like, hey, we need to do what's necessary right now. Then we're going to be able to do what's possible. And I think we're going to stay in that realm for a little bit, do what's necessary, see the results of that. Then we can do a little bit of what's possible. Then we need to get back to doing what's necessary. That's kind of the thing. Yeah. And then, but if we do that, that's going to allow us to do what's impossible after that.
Wow. The first spin class on the moon. Something like that. Space and cycle.
The Elon Musk of spin cycles.
Exactly. Andrew, as we come sort of to the end of this interview,
sure.
One more big question I had was your dad, he was a professional chef from Austria, and you mentioned that one thing that you took away from him was time management. And I think as entrepreneurs sometimes, especially in this industry, we can get very caught up in not being efficient with our time. What are some of the takeaways? How do you do time management? Yeah,
I think the biggest thing, and it is interesting, like even on the spin side. So my dad's a master chef by trade. It's where I get my time management. Like I told you, you can't put everything in the oven at once and then it being done, or at least tasting good. And my mom is in natural healing and natural medicine. And so that's kind of like my energy side. So it's an interesting balance with myself. But I think the biggest thing with dad and time management, even in a sense of your bigger team, is just making sure you understand the numbers. You understand the specific numbers, the specific KPIs that you and your team need to achieve. And I think where I'm at is identifying those KPIs so that you can kind of let go and let your team make mistakes, but also be successful in their own right and do what they need to do. But making sure that those KPIs are set, and then also creating like efficient pulses within your role and your business. So like we've got a Monday or a Tuesday meeting with our senior leadership team. I've got individual one-on-ones every 2 weeks with my leaders. Like we have KPIs with everybody. Everybody has pulses. And that allows, if it's not urgent and important and the place is burning down, then it can wait until that next pulse. Mm-hmm. Like creating those efficient pulses that allow you to get what you need done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And trusting the process, right? Like creating goals that you're not going this way and then that way and then this way every single day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you're following Traction, like EOS?
Yeah.
Okay. Up, and that's been a game changer for you?
Yeah, it has. Like scaling up Traction. There's a lot of, that's kind of the foundation of what we work on. But, I think that it's interesting, and I want to talk about it here because it was really impactful for me. Is I talked about game theory in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that landed really big on me, and I hope that it does within the businesses that are out there. Two things, and both of them are from Simon Sinek. One was that, he talks about like to stop calling your competitors. Yes, there's competition in the market, but who are worthy adversaries of you? As opposed to like competitors. And this comes into his theory about like game theory. That like, as opposed to looking at what you do better than the competitors, look at the people in your market that are worthy adversaries. It's a different mind switch, right? Okay. As opposed to looking at someone that you're like, we do this better than them. We do that. Like, where are your formidable opponents? Where are your worthy adversaries in the market that you actually are like, shit, these people are making us better? What are they doing that actually we can be inspired by? That you're going after? There's a lot of grass in the world, right? Yeah. So like, it's okay. It's not going anywhere. Who are your worthy adversaries? And this kind of goes part and parcel into another talk that I heard him say into the fall, and it totally changed my perspective and vision, and that was about like game theory, where you have like finite games and infinite games.
Okay.
And there's way more. There's probably a whole other hour we can spend on game theory, and I don't know enough about it. But what he was saying is that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that treat their business like a finite a finite game, right? And that's like, you know, soccer, baseball, chess, whatever it might be. There's a beginning, there's an end, there's a clear winner, there's a clear loser, there's a time frame that this is done. And a lot of companies treat their businesses like a finite game.
Interesting.
When in reality, the game of entrepreneurship and the game of business is an infinite game. And the goal of an infinite game is what? Is to stay in the game as long as you can. And obviously you want to thrive in that game, or it's not a game that you want to be in, and you'd probably self-select yourself. So really that mindset of like, I want to figure out how myself and my teams can set things up in our business to make sure that this community is around 50 years from now. Even if I'm not involved in it anymore. It's like, what decisions are you making? Because guess what? When another spin studio shuts down, I don't see that as a win. I don't see that as like they lose, I win. And sometimes we look at competition and say like someone else shuts down. You're like, God, I hope my competition shuts down. That's going to be a win for me. First of all, you're spending too much time looking at your competition. Second of all, you shouldn't be looking at them because they're probably not a formidable adversary, right? That actually elevates your game. But at the end of the day, you're treating it as a finite game. If you think that they lose and you win, well, what happens tomorrow? You still have to open your doors and operate your business. So that switch of like infinite game, for me to be like, listen, the goal in this game is to
stay in the
thrive, to stay in the game. How do you stay in the game? And to thrive in this game for as long as possible, whether or not I'm in the business or not. So
I like that a lot.
I love that.
It's not about getting married. It's about staying married. It's not about getting into shape. You gotta stay in shape. You know,
it's paying your dues every single day. What was that one thing that Hermosi said? He said it like really well. It's like to grow like a really big business or just to grow in general. Like it's like doing like ordinary things over an extraordinary period of time.
Yes, it's not extraordinary It's being able to do it for an extraordinary amount of time. Because right when it gets boring is when you go all in. Because you know that shit then. But it's all about like at the end of the day, this is what Hermosi said, we're all playing poker and you have your chips and the chips of life. But at any point the Grim Reaper can come and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you're done. And what's different about, you know, life and business is that like you leave the chips. You don't bring it with you and stuff. So it's about playing the game, the experience, being part of it. And what I like about that a lot, Andrew, is that that's an abundance mindset. You know, that's about, it's not about, oh, you know, like our competitors, they have that many clients, we have this many, so there's that much less. It's like, no, like there is a lot of grass. Fitness is always going to be important. There's a lot of, you know, pedals to spin. Like let's focus on just like getting better and better and better. And our competition does elevate us. Makes us all, how can we better serve our clients?
Very true.
At the end of the day.
Totally.
Okay.
Love, man.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to come in today. I wish YYC, YEG, YVR Cycle the best of luck with everything you do, and your time is just so appreciated by us, and we hope you do super, super well.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for like everything you've done with like the EO group, the local community, man. Like you've been a big inspiration to me and a lot of other people, man, for sure. So thanks so much, man.
Yeah, a couple years ago, actually, Liam sent me like a iMessage, like, yo, man, check out this guy, Andrew, and stuff. And I watched the whole interview. That's how I had all these questions, actually. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy's awesome. And that charity aspect is what I'm mentioning there too. So keep it up.
And that's when we were just growing our business, man. So you're a big inspiration because we were like $500,000 to join the EOA group, but I always like looked up to you. You're a younger guy, really pushing like the movement like forward, man. So
well, I appreciate that, and I think likewise. I love seeing what you guys are doing, and in fact, you're inspiring me to have my own podcast. And I kind of told you guys that my team is pushing me to do that. So the inspiration goes both ways.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, dude. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Cheers.
Awesome. Hey guys, that was fun.